The universe has a way of correcting anomalies. When two realities brush against each other like strangers on a crowded street, sometimes something slips through the gap. On an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in October 1995, while Harry Potter endured another tedious history of magic lesson and Voldemort plotted in the shadows, reality hiccuped. In a dingy apartment in City Z, a bald man in a yellow jumpsuit reached for his grocery list and found himself falling through a tear in existence itself. Saitama landed face first in a pile of autumn leaves outside the Three Broomsticks pub in Hogsmeade Village. He stood, brushed off his cape, and surveyed his surroundings with the mild confusion of someone who just missed their train stop. Cobblestone streets, medieval architecture, people in robes and pointed hats staring at him like he'd grown a second head. "Huh," Saitama said, his expression unchanging. "This isn't the supermarket." A witch dropped her shopping bags, a wizard grabbed his child and hurried away. Saitama scratched his bald head, looking down at his hero costume. Maybe the cape was too much for grocery shopping after all. He approached a nervous-looking man with a spectacular mustache. "Excuse me, which way to—" The man shrieked and sprinted away, his purple robes billowing behind him. "Rude," Saitama muttered. That's when three figures in dark robes appeared with sharp crack sounds that made Saitama jump slightly. They pointed wooden sticks at him. Wands, though Saitama had no context for such things. The lead Auror, a stern woman with graying hair, spoke with authority. "You there, remain still. Unauthorized apparition into Hogsmeade is a serious offense. Identify yourself immediately." "I'm Saitama. I'm a hero for fun." He looked around. "Also, I'm lost. Very lost." "He's dressed as a muggle superhero," one Auror whispered. "Some kind of prank? Or a distraction?" the lead Auror said coldly. "With you-know-who returned, we can't take chances. Stupefy!" Red light shot from her wand. The spell dissipated like water off rubber. He blinked. Was that supposed to do something? All three Aurors fired simultaneously. Stunning spells, binding curses, even a poorly aimed knockback jinx that demolished the wall behind Saitama. He stood completely unfazed, hands in his pockets, as magical energy fizzled against his body like sparklers. "Okay, this is weird," Saitama said, examining his gloved hand. "Are those magic wands? Is this a theme park?" The Aurors exchanged horrified glances. The lead Auror's wand hand trembled. "Impossible! Nothing resists a stunner, unless Imperio." Her wand movement was textbook perfect. The spell hit Saitama squarely. For a moment, a dreamy expression crossed his face. Then he shook his head like clearing away cobwebs. "Felt that one. Made me want to sit down? That's new." His eyes narrowed with something approaching interest. "What kind of attack was that?" "Emergency retreat!" the Auror screamed. "Alert the Ministry! Unknown entity immune to standard spells!" They vanished with three synchronized cracks, leaving Saitama alone in a street of gaping wizards. An elderly witch fainted. A young boy dropped his ice cream. Saitama sighed. "This is going to be one of those days." If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want them to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Inside Hogwarts Castle, Albus Dumbledore looked up from his desk as Fox trilled urgently. The Phoenix's song carried warning. The headmaster's blue eyes lost their customary twinkle. Something unprecedented had just entered the wizarding world, and every fiber of his magical intuition screamed that the delicate balance of the coming war had shifted. In Little Hangleton, Lord Voldemort paused mid-sentence during a Death Eater meeting. He'd felt it too, a disturbance in the magical fabric itself, like a stone thrown into still water. But this stone seemed to have fallen from outside reality altogether. The Second Wizarding War had just become infinitely more complicated.
The Ministry of Magic atrium bustled with evening activity.
Witches and wizards streamed toward the flues, eager to return home after a long workday. At the Golden Fountain, a memo carrying intern paused to admire the centaur statue. Nobody noticed the shimmer of apparition near the visitor's entrance. Sloppy work by the Auror escort team, but understandable given their panic. Saitama emerged from the spinning sensation feeling vaguely nauseous. "Not a fan of that travel method," he said to the lead Auror, who'd reluctantly returned with reinforcements. 6 Aurors now surrounded him, wands drawn but uncertain. "Straight to holding cell 4, the lead Auror commanded. "The minister will want—" "I'm not going to any cell," Saitama interrupted, his tone mild but firm. "I just want directions home, or at least somewhere that serves food. I missed the supermarket sale." "You assaulted ministry officials with unknown magic." "I didn't do anything. You attacked me first." Saitama looked genuinely confused. "Where I come from, attacking random people is villain behavior." The commotion had drawn attention. Ministry workers stopped to stare. Cornelius Fudge emerged from the golden lifts, lime green bowler hat perched on his head, flanked by Dolores Umbridge in her signature pink cardigan. Her toad-like face twisted into a sugary smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What is the meaning of this disturbance?" Fudge demanded. "Minister, this muggle somehow resisted multiple stunning spells, an imperious curse, and—" "Muggle?" Umbridge's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Surely you're mistaken. No muggle could resist proper magic." "Test him yourself, Madam Undersecretary," the Auror said desperately. Umbridge's smile widened. She raised her wand with practiced ease. "Stupefy. Petrificus totalis. Incarcerus." Ropes shot from her wand, wrapped around Saitama, and fell limply to the floor. The stunning spell washed over him like a gentle breeze. The full body bind simply didn't register. Saitama picked up one of the ropes, examining them with mild curiosity. "These are pretty well made. Could use them for grocery bags." Umbridge's smile vanished. Her face flushed pink to match her cardigan. "Impossible! This is dark magic resistance. Clearly, you know who has developed a new technique." "You know who?" asked Saitama. "That's a weird name." "Silence!" Umbridge shrieked, her composure cracking. "Minister, this is clearly a Death Eater operative. We must use appropriate force." "Madam Umbridge, perhaps we should—" Fudge began nervously. But Umbridge was already casting. "Confringo!" The blasting curse shot across the atrium. Saitama caught the bright light on his palm like someone catching a baseball. The spell exploded against his glove, creating a thunderous bang that shattered every window in the atrium. The golden fountain cracked down its center. Ministry workers dove for cover. When the smoke cleared, Saitama stood completely unharmed, though slightly annoyed. "Okay, that one was loud," he said, shaking his slightly smoking glove. "Could you not—" "Full offensive," Umbridge commanded. 20 wands fired simultaneously. The atrium erupted into chaos. Stunning spells, body binds, cutting curses, conjured chains, a symphony of magical assault that would have dropped a dragon. Saitama weathered it all, growing increasingly frustrated. "Stop shooting things at me," he shouted over the magical barrage. A particularly powerful reductor curse missed him entirely and obliterated 3 support columns. The magnificent ceiling groaned. Chunks of masonry rained down. Saitama moved without thinking, not attacking, just moving to catch falling debris before it crushed the screaming ministry employees below. His casual swipe to knock away rubble generated a shockwave that slammed into the far wall. The impact cratered the stonework and sent the golden fountain toppling. Water gushed across the polished floor. Half of the atrium's architecture simply collapsed from the pressure wave of Saitama's reflexive defense. Silence fell. Saitama stood in the center of destruction, holding a massive stone block above his head with one hand, while terrified ministry employees cowered behind overturned desks. "Sorry," he said sheepishly, setting down the debris carefully. "I'm still not used to how fragile everything is." Fudge stared, mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. Umbridge had gone pale beneath her pink cardigan. The Aurors had lowered their wands, finally recognizing the futility. "What are you?" someone whispered. Saitama scratched his bald head. "Just a guy who's a hero for fun. Can someone please just tell me where I am?"
The Hogwarts staff room rarely hosted emergency meetings, but Dumbledore had called this one with unusual urgency. Professors McGonagall, Snape, Flitwick, and Sprout gathered around the crackling fireplace. Through the Floo network's emerald flames, Kingsley Shacklebolt's deep voice reported from the Ministry. "Half the atrium is destroyed. Fudge is having a breakdown. Umbridge tried to have the stranger kissed on sight, but the Dementors won't approach him." "Won't approach him?" McGonagall's eyebrows rose. "Dementors fear nothing except Patronuses." "They're not afraid," Kingsley corrected. "They're uninterested, like he has no happiness to feed on, or possibly too much. The handlers can't explain it." Dumbledore stroked his silver beard thoughtfully. "And his magical signature?" "That's the problem, Albus. He has none. No magical core, no trace, nothing. He reads as a complete muggle, yet he's immune to every spell we've attempted, Imperio included, and his physical capabilities defy explanation. He caught a blasting curse with his bare hand." Snape's black eyes narrowed. "The Dark Lord will hear of this within the hour, an immunity to magic. If it can be replicated, bottled, or stolen," Dumbledore finished quietly. "Yes, Severus, which is why I've already extended an invitation." He glanced at the empty chair beside him. "He should arrive any moment." "You're bringing him here?" McGonagall sounded appalled. "Albus, we have students. If this stranger is dangerous—" "Minerva, from all reports he defended Ministry workers from debris. He apologized for the destruction. He asked for directions." Dumbledore's blue eyes twinkled with renewed interest. "I believe we're dealing with something unprecedented, someone genuinely heroic who simply doesn't understand our world." The door opened. Professor Flitwick squeaked and fell off his cushion stack. Saitama entered, still in his yellow jumpsuit and white cape, looking profoundly out of place among the pointed hats and flowing robes. An exhausted Auror escort hovered behind him, wand raised but useless. "Thanks for the invite," Saitama said, scanning the room. "Nice castle, very old-fashioned." "Please, sit," Dumbledore gestured to the empty chair. "I am Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You've had quite an introduction to our world." Saitama sat carefully, as if the chair might break. "Witchcraft? So this is actually magic? Real magic?" "Indeed. And you are?" "Saitama. I'm a hero. Was a hero. I guess I still am." He frowned, struggling to explain. "I used to fight monsters and bad guys, did some training, got strong, then I ended up here through some kind of hole in reality." "A dimensional rift, extraordinarily rare. Your world operates under different physical laws, I suspect." "I guess. People usually don't shoot colored lights at each other where I'm from." Saitama's expression remained flat, but there was a hint of curiosity. "Is everyone here immune to physical damage?"
"Goodness, no," Professor Flitwick squeaked. "We're quite fragile, actually." "Then why does everyone keep attacking me instead of just talking?" The simple question hung in the air. McGonagall exchanged glances with Snape, who looked faintly amused despite himself. "Fear," Dumbledore said gently. "Our world is at war, Mr. Saitama. A dark wizard has returned to power, and the Ministry refuses to acknowledge it. Trust is scarce. When you appeared, immune to magic, they assumed you were a weapon. That's stupid, Saitama said bluntly. I'm obviously not a weapon. Weapons don't apologize. Indeed. Dumbledore offered him a lemon drop, which Saitama accepted uncertainly. I wonder if you might stay at Hogwarts for a time. We could help you research dimensional magic, seek a way home. In return, your unique perspective might prove invaluable. Will there be food? 3 meals daily, quite substantial. Sold. Snape leaned forward, his voice dripping with skepticism. Headmaster, surely you don't intend to... The door burst open. Dolores Umbridge stood in the doorway, pink and furious, flanked by Ministry officials. Behind her lurked Dawlish and 2 more Oros. Dumbledore, you've harbored a dangerous criminal. By order of Educational Decree number 28, I'm assuming authority over all security decisions at Hogwarts. Her toad-like eyes fixed on Saitama with undisguised hatred. That creature destroyed Ministry property and resisted lawful arrest. Madam Umbridge, Dumbledore said calmly, Mr. Saitama was defending himself against unprovoked assault. He's an unregistered muggle using illegal defensive magic. He'll be held at Azkaban pending investigation. I'm not going to wizard prison, Saitama said flatly. I didn't do anything wrong. Ahem. Umbridge's sugary smile returned. You don't have a choice, dear. Oros, restrain him. Use force if necessary. The Oros looked at each other nervously. They'd read the reports. Saitama stood slowly. His face remained expressionless, but something in his posture shifted. The professors instinctively stepped back. Even Snape's hand moved toward his wand. I'm trying to be polite, Saitama said quietly. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I'm not going to prison for defending myself against people who attacked me first. He looked directly at Umbridge. So here's what's going to happen. I'm staying here with the headmaster. You're going to leave, and everyone's going to calm down. How dare! Or, Saitama continued, his voice still mild, I'll flick you, just a little flick, through that wall, and probably the next 3 walls, maybe the whole castle. I honestly don't know how sturdy this place is. The threat, delivered in the most casual tone imaginable, was somehow more terrifying than any dark curse. Umbridge went pale beneath her rouge. Dumbledore stood smoothly. Perhaps this conversation would benefit from continued dialogue through proper ministry channels, Dolores. Mr. Saitama is my guest. I vouch for his character. The minister will hear about this, Umbridge hissed. She turned on her heel, robes swirling dramatically, and stormed out. The Oros left with visible relief. When the door closed, Saitama sat back down. Is she always like that? Unfortunately, yes, McGonagall said dryly. This is going to be complicated, Saitama sighed.
The Gryffindor common room buzzed with excited whispers. News traveled fast at Hogwarts, especially news involving ministry destruction and mysterious strangers. Harry Potter sat by the fireplace, rubbing his scar absently while Hermione consulted 3 different books simultaneously and Ron speculated wildly. I heard he punched straight through the Fountain of Magical Brethren, Ron said through a mouthful of chocolate frog. Bare-handed! That's physically impossible, Hermione said without looking up. The fountain is reinforced with 17 different protective enchantments. Nothing short of fiend fire could... Well, someone did it. Ministry's in chaos. Dad says Fudge is trying to cover it up, but too many people saw. Harry stared into the flames, his scar prickling uncomfortably. Something felt wrong. Not Voldemort wrong, but different, like reality itself had hiccuped. Do you think it's connected to you-know-who? Harry asked quietly. Everything's connected to you-know-who these days, Ron muttered. The portrait hole burst open. Seamus Finnegan tumbled through, breathless with excitement. You won't believe this. There's a muggle wandering the 7th floor, wearing the strangest outfit I've ever seen. Yellow and white with a cape. A muggle inside Hogwarts. Hermione slammed her book shut. That's impossible. The wards would prevent... Come see for yourself." Within minutes, half of Gryffindor Tower had mobilized. They found Saitama on the 7th floor corridor, standing in front of a tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy, looking profoundly lost. Professor McGonagall stood nearby, exasperated. "Mr. Saitama, the guest quarters are on the 3rd floor. How did you end up here?" "I took the moving stairs. They moved while I was on them, several times in different directions." "The staircases shift on a schedule." "Nobody told me that." Students gathered at both ends of the corridor, whispering and pointing. Harry pushed to the front, Hermione and Ron flanking him. He got his first proper look at the stranger. Saitama looked utterly ordinary, average height, bald head, plain face, but there was something about his eyes, a certain emptiness that came from experiencing too much. Harry recognized it. He'd seen it in Sirius's eyes after Azkaban. "Is he really a muggle?" someone whispered. "Dumbledore's gone mad letting him wander around. Did he really destroy the Ministry?" Saitama noticed the growing crowd. Hi, I'm looking for my room. Professor Dumbledore said 3rd floor, red door. There are a lot of doors." "You're the one from the Ministry," Harry said, stepping forward. "The one who survived all those spells." "Yeah, that was confusing. Are you students? You're all pretty young to be learning combat magic." "We are 15, Ron said indignantly. "That's 3rd year of... Wait, combat magic?" The colored light attacks seemed pretty aggressive for school. Hermione's eyes widened with realization. "You think defensive spells are combat magic? Where exactly are you from?" "City Z, Japan, maybe. I'm not sure anymore. Different world, apparently." The corridor erupted in excited muttering. A muggle from another world? Impossible, fascinating, dangerous. Professor McGonagall cleared her throat sharply. "Enough, all of you, back to your common rooms. Mr. Saitama is a guest of the headmaster, and I will not tolerate gossip." She turned to Saitama. "Come along, I'll escort you properly this time." "Thanks, sorry for the trouble." As McGonagall led him away, Saitama glanced back at the students. His gaze lingered on Harry for just a moment. Something in the boy's eyes, some familiar exhaustion seemed to register. Then he was gone around the corner.
Harry stood frozen, his scar burning more insistently now. "Blimey," Ron breathed. "Did you see how calm he was? Like none of this bothers him at all." "Or everything bothers him," Hermione said thoughtfully, "and he's just learned to hide it." 3 floors down, in his guest quarters, Saitama sat on the edge of an overly soft 4-poster bed and stared at the enchanted ceiling mirror that kept complimenting his bold fashion choices. The room was comfortable, tapestries, fireplace, more furniture than his entire apartment back home. But he was trapped in a world where his strength meant nothing because the threats could simply bypass it. The Imperious curse had felt like drowning in cotton, his own mind suggesting things that weren't his thoughts. The sensation had lasted only seconds before his willpower crushed it, but it had happened. Something had gotten through. For 3 years, Saitama had been untouchable, invincible, bored. Every fight ended in one punch, every monster fell, every villain crumbled. He'd achieved his dream of ultimate strength and found only emptiness in victory. But here, magic operated on different rules. That woman's binding ropes hadn't hurt him, but mind control worked, partially. And if mind control worked, what else might? Transformation? Teleportation? That green jet of light the Aurors kept nervously mentioning but refusing to use? Saitama felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. And beneath that, something even more unfamiliar. Interest. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Saitama, it's Professor Dumbledore. Might I come in?" "Sure." Dumbledore entered, conjuring 2 comfortable chairs with a casual wand wave. He settled into one, offering another lemon drop that Saitama politely declined. "I imagine you're feeling somewhat overwhelmed," Dumbledore said kindly. "I'm fine, just thinking." "About the Imperious curse, perhaps. I understand you felt its effects, however briefly."
Saitama nodded slowly. My body's invincible, trained it that way, but magic doesn't care about my body. It goes around it somehow. Magic targets the soul, the mind, the essence of being. Your physical resilience, impressive as it is, offers no defense against spells that bypass physicality entirely. Dumbledore's blue eyes twinkled with gentle understanding. You've discovered your limitation. I guess so. How does that feel? Saitama considered the question seriously. Strange. I spent 3 years being too strong. Now I'm finding out I'm also too weak. Both things are true at the same time. A profound observation. Dumbledore leaned forward. Mr. Saitama, I believe you could teach my students something valuable. Not magic, you cannot perform magic, but something perhaps more important, the strength that exists beyond power. I'm not a teacher. Neither was I initially, yet here we are. Dumbledore stood, his robes swirling. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll begin researching dimensional travel, and perhaps you'll meet some of our students properly. I suspect Harry Potter would benefit from your perspective. The kid with the scar? Indeed, he carries burdens that would crush most adults, rather like someone else I've recently met. When Dumbledore left, Saitama lay back on the impossibly soft bed and stared at the enchanted ceiling that now displayed a peaceful night sky. Stars twinkled. Somewhere in that false cosmos, his real world continued without him. And somewhere in this world, dark forces were already learning about the indestructible Muggle who'd appeared in their carefully balanced war.
In the shadowed ruins of Riddle Manor, Lord Voldemort sat upon his makeshift throne, crimson eyes gleaming in wand-light. Before him knelt Bellatrix Lestrange, her dark curls wild with excitement, and beside her stood Lucius Malfoy, silver-haired and calculating. "A Muggle," Voldemort hissed, his lipless mouth curling in disgust. "Immune to the Imperius, resistant to all standard spell work, destroyed half the Ministry atrium with casual movement." His skeletal fingers drummed against the armrest. "Tell me, Lucius, how is this possible?" "The reports are inconsistent, my lord." Malfoy's voice remained smooth despite his obvious nervousness. "Some claim dark magic protection, others suggest foreign enchantments, but all agree he reads as a complete Muggle, no magical signature whatsoever. And yet Dumbledore shelters him at Hogwarts." Voldemort rose, his black robe seeming to absorb the light around him. "Convenient timing, is it not? I return to power, and suddenly an indestructible weapon appears in my enemy's hands." "Perhaps the old fool created him," Bellatrix suggested eagerly. "Some vile experiment, my lord. We should strike immediately before—" "Silence." Voldemort's command was soft but absolute. "I will not act rashly. If this Muggle is truly immune to magic, then direct confrontation is inadvisable." His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "But immunity to spells does not mean immunity to strategy. Bella, you will investigate. Observe from a distance. Learn his weaknesses." "And if I find none, my lord?" "Everyone has weaknesses, Bella. His may simply be unconventional." Voldemort moved to the window, gazing out at the dark countryside. "The Muggle's presence changes nothing. We adapt, we evolve, and when the time comes, we will discover that even the indestructible can be destroyed if one knows where to apply pressure." Bellatrix bowed deeply, barely containing her manic grin. A new toy to break. How delightful. Back at Hogwarts, breakfast in the Great Hall had become a spectator sport. Saitama sat at the staff table beside Professor Sprout, methodically working through his third helping of scrambled eggs, while the entire student body stared. He seemed oblivious to the attention, focused entirely on his plate, with the concentration of someone who'd missed too many meals. "Does he ever stop eating?" Draco Malfoy muttered at the Slytherin table. "Maybe Muggles need more food,"
Pansy Parkinson suggested, inferior metabolism. At the Gryffindor table, Harry picked at his porridge, unable to stop watching the strange man. There was something familiar about Saitama's emptiness, the way he moved through the world like he was only half present. "He's been eating for 20 minutes straight," Ron observed with professional interest. "Respect." "How is he not sick?" Hermione wondered. "That's at least 4,000 calories." "Maybe that's his magic," Neville suggested nervously. "Eating magic?" Dumbledore stood, and the hall quieted. "Students, I'd like to formally introduce our guest. This is Saitama, a visitor from quite far away. He'll be staying at Hogwarts while we research methods to return him home. I expect you'll all treat him with courtesy and respect." Polite applause rippled through the hall, though suspicious whispers followed. Slytherin table remained conspicuously silent. Saitama looked up from his eggs, noticed everyone staring, and gave an awkward half-wave. "Hi, nice castle you've got." The simplicity of it somehow made the situation more surreal. After breakfast, Harry's scar burned fiercely as he walked to defense against the dark arts. Umbridge had been in a foul mood since the Ministry incident, and her lessons had become increasingly vindictive. Today proved no exception.
"Wands away," Umbridge announced in her sickly sweet voice. "Today we continue reading Chapter 15, Basic Defensive Theory and its Practical Applications." "But Professor," Hermione raised her hand, "we've read this chapter 4 times. Shouldn't we practice actual defensive spells?" "The Ministry-approved curriculum does not require dangerous practical work. Reading is sufficient." "Sufficient for what?" Harry snapped, his patience finally breaking. "We're at war. Voldemort's back, and you're making us read about defense instead of learning it." The classroom went deathly silent. Umbridge's toad-like face flushed with rage. "Detention, Mr. Potter. My office, 5 o'clock." Her voice dripped poison. "And 50 points for Gryffindor for your lies about you-know-who." "They're not lies!" "Detention every night this week. Would you like to make it a month?" Harry clenched his fists, his scar searing. Before he could respond, the classroom door opened. Professor McGonagall entered, looking stern, with Saitama trailing behind her, looking vaguely confused. "Dolores, the headmaster asked me to introduce Mr. Saitama to various classes. He's interested in our educational methods." Umbridge's smile became strained. "How delightful. Though I'm not sure what a muggle could possibly learn from." "I'm not here to learn," Saitama interrupted, scanning the room. He noticed Harry immediately. The boy looked furious, scar standing out starkly on his forehead. "Just observing." He took an empty seat at the back. The students twisted in their chairs, torn between watching Umbridge's mounting fury and the strange bald man in the yellow jumpsuit. "As I was saying," Umbridge continued through gritted teeth, "turn to page 200 and... Excuse me," Saitama raised his hand like a student. "Why aren't they practicing?" "I beg your pardon?" "Defense class, right? Shouldn't they be learning to defend themselves? Reading's fine, but you learn by doing." Umbridge's eye twitched. "The Ministry has determined that theoretical knowledge is..." "That's dumb," Saitama said flatly. "If someone attacks you, theory won't help. You need practice, muscle memory, real experience." The classroom erupted in barely suppressed excitement. Someone had finally said what they'd all been thinking. Harry felt a surge of gratitude toward the strange muggle. "Mr. Saitama," Umbridge's voice became dangerously soft, "you are a guest. You have no authority to question Ministry-approved curriculum." "I'm not questioning the Ministry, I'm questioning you." Saitama's expression remained neutral, but his tone carried absolute certainty. "Where I come from, heroes train constantly, because when danger comes, you don't get second chances. These kids deserve real training." "These kids are perfectly safe. There is no danger.
The Ministry guarantees. The Ministry's lying. Saitama looked directly at Umbridge. Even I can tell that. Something bad is happening, and you're leaving them defenseless. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Umbridge stood slowly, her wand hand trembling with rage. Get out! Fine, Saitama stood, hands in pockets. Seems like you're scared them actually learning to protect themselves. Makes me wonder why. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back at the students. If anyone wants to actually learn defense, I'll be around. I'm not a wizard, but I know about fighting. He left. McGonagall followed with an exasperated sigh. The door closed. Harry stared at the empty doorway, something crystallizing in his mind. If Umbridge wouldn't teach them, if the Ministry refused to prepare them, then they'd have to do it themselves.
The room of requirement materialized exactly as needed, spacious with cushioned floors, practice dummies, and enough room for 20 students to work comfortably. Harry stood at the front, nervous energy crackling through him, while Hermione organized the sign-up sheet and Ron watched the door. They'd spread the word carefully. Interested students only, those who wanted to actually learn defense. Within days, they had 25 members, Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, even a few brave Slytherins who'd had enough of Umbridge's tyranny. Right, Harry began awkwardly. So we're calling ourselves Dumbledore's Army, DA for short. We'll meet twice a week to practice real defensive magic. The door opened. Saitama walked in, looking around with mild interest. Oh, Harry said, surprised. Mr. Saitama, this is sort of a private... Dumbledore told me about your study group, said I might be able to help. Saitama shrugged. I can't do magic, but I've fought a lot, trained a lot. Maybe I can teach you something useful. The students exchanged uncertain glances. A muggle teaching defense? It seemed absurd, yet there was something about his casual confidence, the way he moved with absolute certainty that commanded attention. What could you possibly teach us? Zachariah Smith asked skeptically. You can't even cast a shield charm. True, Saitama acknowledged, but I can teach you what to do when your shield breaks, how to stay calm when you're outmatched, how to find courage when you're terrified. He looked at Harry. You've faced real danger, right? What's the hardest part? Harry considered, remembering the graveyard, Voldemort's resurrection, Cedric's death. The fear, when it hits you and suddenly you can't think straight. Exactly. Saitama sat cross-legged on the floor. Magic's powerful, but if you panic, your wand won't help. First lesson, breathing. Sounds stupid, but it works. Breathing? Malfoy would have laughed, but these students had volunteered for extra training precisely because they understood the danger. They listened. Saitama demonstrated slow, controlled breaths. When I started hero work, I fought a crab monster that was way stronger than me. I panicked, nearly died, had to learn to stay calm even when things go bad. He looked at each student in turn. Your spells are only as good as your focus. Fear breaks focus. For the next hour, Saitama taught them techniques that had nothing to do with magic. Breathing exercises, situational awareness, how to fall safely, how to keep moving when injured. Simple, practical skills that wizards rarely considered. Most of you rely too much on magic, Saitama observed as Neville struggled through a dodging drill. You think your wand will save you, but what if you drop it? What if someone disarms you? You need backup plans. That's what wandless magic is for, Hermione said. Can all of you do wandless magic? Silence. Then you need other options. Saitama stood. Harry, attack me with that stunning spell. Harry hesitated. I can't. You're not a wizard. I might hurt. You won't. Harry raised his wand. Stupefy. The red bolt shot across the room. Saitama tilted his head slightly, and the spell whizzed past his ear. He'd barely moved, just shifted his weight, reading Harry's body language before the spell was cast.
You telegraphed, Saitama explained. Your wand movement, your stance, everything told me where you'd aim. In a real fight, Enemies will read you the same way. He looked at the stunned students. Practice reading each other. Learn to predict. Magic's not just about power, it's about precision. The session continued. Saitama couldn't demonstrate spells, but he could demonstrate principle, economy of movement, strategic thinking, mental resilience. The students practiced stunning each other while Saitama called out advice, his empty eyes somehow seeing everything. Ron, don't wind up so much. Hermione, you're too predictable. Change your pattern. Neville, stop apologizing and commit to the spell. By the end, everyone was exhausted but energized. They'd learned more practical combat sense in 1 hour than in months of Umbridge's theoretical drivel. As students filed out, Harry approached Saitama. "Thank you. That was different, but good." "You're carrying a lot," Saitama observed, "more than you should at your age." Harry touched his scar self-consciously. "Someone has to. Voldemort's back and the Ministry won't admit it. If we're not prepared, you die." Voldemort finished bluntly. "Yeah, I get it." He studied Harry with those unsettlingly empty eyes. "I used to know someone who reminds me of you, another hero who took too much responsibility. It broke him eventually." "What happened?" "He kept going anyway, because that's what heroes do." Saitama stood. "Just remember, you don't have to carry everything alone. That's why you've got them." He gestured to Ron and Hermione, who were arguing about proper stunning form near the door. Harry felt something loosen in his chest. For months he'd felt isolated, disbelieved, burdened with knowledge no one wanted to hear. But here was someone who simply accepted the danger, no questions asked, and offered help. "Will you keep training us?" Harry asked. "If you want. Can't teach you magic, but I can teach you to survive." Saitama headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing. That woman, Umbridge, she's going to come after this group eventually. Be ready." "How do you know?" "People like her always do. They can't stand others having power they can't control." His expression remained neutral, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "When she comes, don't back down. Bullies only understand strength." After Saitama left, Ron whistled softly. "Blimey, he's intense." "He's right, though," Hermione said quietly. "Umbridge will find out eventually. We need to be careful." Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Saitama had said he couldn't teach them magic, but he was teaching them something potentially more valuable: the courage to face impossible odds without flinching. In the shadows of Hogsmeade Village, Bellatrix Lestrange watched Saitama emerge from Hogwarts gates for his evening walk. She'd been observing for 3 days now, growing increasingly frustrated. The Muggle did nothing interesting. He walked, ate, slept, helped students with their ridiculous training exercises. But Voldemort wanted information, and Bella always delivered. She fingered her wand, considering. A direct attack would be foolish. The Ministry reports had been clear about his physical immunity. But what about his environment, his surroundings? An idea formed, cruel and elegant. If the Muggle couldn't be hurt directly, perhaps those around him could be, and in protecting them, he might reveal weaknesses. Bellatrix smiled in the darkness. Oh, this would be fun.
The nightmare began on a cold November evening. Saitama was returning from Hogsmeade, arms laden with groceries from the village. The Hogwarts kitchens were excellent, but he'd developed a craving for instant noodles that magic couldn't satisfy. The path wound through bare trees, twilight casting long shadows across the grounds. He felt it before he saw it, a disturbance in the air, a wrongness that made his hero instincts prickle. Then they came. Dementors. 3 of them glided from the forbidden forest like oil slicks given form, their rotting hands extended, breath rattling in their invisible throats. The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the ground. Saitama's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air.
He'd heard about these things from Dumbledore, soul-sucking creatures. The wizards feared them more than almost anything else. Saitama set down his groceries carefully and faced them. The lead Dementor raised its skeletal hands toward him. That horrible rattling intensified. The Dementor's kiss meant to suck out his soul. Saitama felt something, a pulling sensation, like fingers made of ice reaching inside his chest, grasping for something vital. His body didn't react. No pain, no damage. His soul apparently was as resilient as his flesh. But then the memories came. Every fight he'd ever won too easily, every opponent who'd fallen before they could challenge him, the endless grinding boredom of being too strong, the hollow victory of saving people who looked at him with fear rather than gratitude, the profound loneliness of existing at a level no one else could reach. 3 years of emptiness compressed into a single moment of absolute despair. Saitama's knees buckled. Expecto Patronum! A silver phoenix erupted from the darkness, Dumbledore's Patronus, massive and radiant. It swept through the Dementors, scattering them like smoke. The headmaster emerged from behind a tree, wand raised, his expression grimmer than Saitama had ever seen. "Are you injured?" Dumbledore asked urgently. Saitama slowly stood, his hands trembling slightly, the first time they'd trembled in 3 years. "I'm fine, physically." He looked at his shaking hands with something like wonder. What the hell was that? Dementors. They feed on happiness, force victims to relive their worst memories. The kiss extracts the soul itself. Saitama felt something, a pulling sensation, like fingers made of ice reaching inside his chest, grasping for something vital. But his body resisted the extraction. I've never seen that before. But the emotional assault clearly affected you. It made me remember. Saitama's voice was quieter than usual. Everything I've been trying not to think about. The Dementor's true weapon isn't the kiss, it's the despair. Dumbledore guided him back toward the castle. "Tell me, what do you remember when they attacked?" Saitama was silent for a long moment. "Being strong, and how much I hate it." Before Dumbledore could respond, Professor McGonagall rushed toward them, her face pale. "Albus, there's been an attack in the room of requirement. Someone hexed the DA students." They ran. The room of requirement was chaos. Students lay scattered across the floor, some petrified, others writhing as boils erupted across their skin. Harry knelt beside Hermione, who'd been hit with a stinging hex so severe her face was swollen beyond recognition. Ron clutched his wand arm, bent at an unnatural angle. "What happened?" Neville gasped, his nose bleeding freely. The door opened and someone threw curses, multiple someones. They wore masks, moved so fast. Death Eaters. They had to be Death Eaters. Madame Pomfrey arrived with Professor Snape, both immediately beginning emergency healing. Saitama stood at the edge of the chaos, watching students suffer, and felt that familiar hollowness transform into something else.
Anger. Cold, focused anger. "Where did they go?" he asked quietly. "Saitama, no," Dumbledore said firmly. "This is a matter for the Order." "Where did they go?" Harry looked up, blood dripping from a cut above his eye. "They disappariated, but not before one of them laughed." His voice shook with rage. It was a woman. She said, "Tell the Muggle this is just a warning. Next time we'll do worse." The room went very quiet.
Saitama's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Every student who could still move instinctively leaned away. Even Snape paused in his healing, recognizing the aura of barely contained violence. "They attacked children," Saitama said, his voice perfectly level, "to send me a message." "Bellatrix Lestrange," Snape hissed. "It bears her signature. Creative cruelty, precise casting. She's toying with us." "Where would she go?" Saitama asked. "We don't know," Dumbledore said. "Death Eaters have dozens of safe houses. Then I'll check them all." "Saitama, you cannot simply—" "I can." Saitama looked at Hermione's swollen face, at Ron's broken arm, at Neville's bleeding nose. "They hurt us to get to me. That means this is my responsibility." "This is war," Dumbledore said gently but firmly. "You cannot win it alone." "Watch me." "You don't even know where to look. So tell me where to start." The standoff lasted several seconds. Finally, it was Harry who spoke, his voice raw with pain and fury. "The Malfoy Manor. Lucius Malfoy is a Death Eater. His family estate would be a logical meeting place." Hermione tried to protest through her swollen lips. "They hurt us to bait him," Harry continued, ignoring her. "Fine, let him take the bait, but maybe this time they'll learn why that was a mistake." Saitama looked at Harry, really looked at him, saw the same anger he felt reflected in those green eyes, the same determination, the same willingness to act when others hesitated. "I'll bring you back proof," Saitama promised. "Bring us back justice," Harry corrected. Dumbledore sighed heavily. "If I cannot stop you, then at least allow me to point you in the right direction. But Saitama, Bellatrix Lestrange is one of the most dangerous witches alive. She will not fight fairly." "Neither will I," Saitama said. He turned and walked out the long drive towards Hogsmeade, where he'd convinced a nervous wizard to give him directions to Malfoy Manor. The Dementors had shown him his weakness, the emotional void, the despair of being too strong. But they'd also shown him something else. That void could be filled with purpose, with protection, with the simple
Anger. Cold, focused anger. "Where did they go?" he asked quietly. "Saitama, no," Dumbledore said firmly. "This is a matter for the Order." "Where did they go?" Harry looked up, blood dripping from a cut above his eye. "They disappariated, but not before one of them laughed." His voice shook with rage. It was a woman. She said, "Tell the Muggle this is just a warning. Next time we'll do worse." The room went very quiet. Saitama's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Every student who could still move instinctively leaned away. Even Snape paused in his healing, recognizing the aura of barely contained violence. "They attacked children," Saitama said, his voice perfectly level, "to send me a message." "Bellatrix Lestrange," Snape hissed. "It bears her signature. Creative cruelty, precise casting. She's toying with us." "Where would she go?" Saitama asked. "We don't know," Dumbledore said. "Death Eaters have dozens of safe houses. Then I'll check them all." "Saitama, you cannot simply—" "I can." Saitama looked at Hermione's swollen face, at Ron's broken arm, at Neville's bleeding nose. "They hurt us to get to me. That means this is my responsibility." "This is war," Dumbledore said gently but firmly. "You cannot win it alone." "Watch me." "You don't even know where to look. So tell me where to start." The standoff lasted several seconds. Finally, it was Harry who spoke, his voice raw with pain and fury. "The Malfoy Manor. Lucius Malfoy is a Death Eater. His family estate would be a logical meeting place." Hermione tried to protest through her swollen lips.
They hurt us to bait him, Harry continued, ignoring her. Fine, let him take the bait, but maybe this time they'll learn why that was a mistake. Saitama looked at Harry, really looked at him, saw the same anger he felt reflected in those green eyes, the same determination, the same willingness to act when others hesitated. "I'll bring you back proof," Saitama promised. "Bring us back justice," Harry corrected. Dumbledore sighed heavily. "If I cannot stop you, then at least allow me to point you in the right direction. But Saitama, Bellatrix Lestrange is one of the most dangerous witches alive. She will not fight fairly." "Neither will I," Saitama said. He turned and walked out the long drive towards Hogsmeade, where he'd convinced a nervous wizard to give him directions to Malfoy Manor. The Dementors had shown him his weakness, the emotional void, the despair of being too strong. But they'd also shown him something else. That void could be filled with purpose, with protection, with the simple, clear objective of making sure children didn't suffer for his existence. His hands had stopped trembling.
Malfoy Manor rose from the Wiltshire countryside like a pale crown, all elegant architecture and ancient magic. Peacocks wandered the grounds. Protective enchantments shimmered invisibly across every entrance. The ancestral home of one of Britain's oldest pure-blood families, it was a fortress. Saitama walked up to the front gate and punched it. The wrought iron exploded inward with a sound like a thunderclap. Ancient protective wards sparked and died, overwhelmed by sheer kinetic force that had no magical signature to deflect. Alarms shrieked. The peacocks fled, screaming. Saitama walked through the settling dust, up the pristine gravel drive, toward the manor's front door. Inside, chaos erupted. Lucius Malfoy stared at the scrying bowl that monitored the perimeter, watching in disbelief as a yellow-clad figure simply walked through defenses that had stood for centuries. "Impossible," he whispered. "The wards." "Don't work on him, you fool," Bellatrix Lestrange laughed, her eyes wild with manic delight. "Oh, this is wonderful. He actually came, alone." 5 Death Eaters stood in the manor's entrance hall. Bellatrix, Lucius, Rookwood, Dolohov, and Jugson. All experienced duelists, all veterans of the First War. They raised their wands as Saitama reached the door. He knocked politely. "Come in," Bellatrix called in a sing-song voice. The door wasn't locked. Saitama opened it and stepped into the grand entrance hall, taking in the scene. Masked Death Eaters, wands pointed at him, a massive chandelier overhead, marble floors that probably cost more than his entire apartment building. "Hi," Saitama said. "I'm looking for the woman who attacked my students. Someone told me she might be here." "Your students?" Bellatrix tilted her head like a curious bird. "How sweet! The Muggle thinks he's a teacher. Did Dumbledore give you a certificate?" "I want to know why you hurt them." "Why? Because it was fun. Because I wanted to see what the indestructible Muggle would do." She giggled, the sound high and unstable. "And look, you came running, like a good little dog." "One chance," Saitama said quietly. "Apologize. Turn yourselves in. Make this right." The Death Eaters laughed, except Lucius, who was studying Saitama with growing unease. "Or what?" Bellatrix sneered. "You'll punch us. We're not stupid enough to fight you physically, Muggle." She raised her wand. "Crucio!" The Cruciatus curse hit Saitama squarely. For a moment, his body locked up, nerves screaming with phantom pain. It felt like being electrocuted, burned, and flayed simultaneously, the worst pain the human nervous system could experience. Saitama had trained through pain. He'd fought monsters that had torn his limbs off, creatures that had burned him, frozen him, crushed him. His training had pushed his body past every conceivable limit. The curse hurt, but he'd felt worse. He walked forward, step by grinding step, while Bellatrix maintained the curse. "Impossible!" she shrieked. "No one walks through Crucio." "Your turn," Saitama said, and flicked his finger. The air pressure changed. Bellatrix flew backward like she'd been hit by a train, smashing through 3 walls before finally stopping. The manor shook. Ancient portraits screamed. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Fire everything!" Lucius commanded. 4 wands cast simultaneously, killing curses, blasting hexes, cutting curses, dark magic that could reduce a human being to ash. The magical barrage ended, and Saitama was completely unharmed. His costume had some scorch marks, which seemed to annoy him more than the actual attacks. "My turn," he repeated. He moved. To the Death Eaters, it was like fighting a natural disaster. Saitama wasn't fast by his standards. He was being careful, trying not to kill anyone. But to them, he was a yellow blur that defied prediction.
Rookwood cast a shield charm. Saitama's casual backhand shattered it and the wand that created it, and 3 of Rookwood's ribs. The Death Eater crumpled, gasping. Dolohoff apparated behind Saitama, wand raised for a killing blow. Saitama spun, caught the wand mid-cast, and threw Dolohoff through the chandelier. Crystal rained down like deadly snow. Jugson ran. Saitama let him go. One survivor needed to carry the message. Lucius backed away, his aristocratic composure finally cracking. "Wait, we can negotiate. Whatever you want. Money, power, information." "I want you to stop hurting kids." "Done. We'll leave Hogwarts alone. The students are safe, I swear, on my—" Saitama grabbed Lucius by his expensive robes and lifted him one-handed. "You're lying. I can tell. You're scared now, but the moment I leave, you'll go back to doing whatever your boss tells you." He looked into Lucius's terrified eyes. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to that wizard prison, Azkaban, right? All of you. And you're going to tell every Death Eater you meet exactly what happened here tonight." "And what happened?" Lucius whispered. "You learned that attacking children to get to me was the worst decision of your life." Saitama set him down and turned to survey the wreckage. Bellatrix was embedded in a distant wall, unconscious but alive. Rookwood groaned on the floor. Dolohoff dangled from the ruined chandelier, stunned. Jugson had escaped. The sound of multiple apparitions announced the arrival of Aurors, alerted by the shattered wards. Kingsley Shacklebolt appeared, wand drawn, and stopped dead at the scene of destruction. "Saitama? What happened here?" "These Death Eaters attacked students at Hogwarts, hurt them to send me a message." Saitama's voice was completely flat. "I sent one back." Kingsley surveyed the carnage, the shattered walls, the ruined chandelier, the unconscious Death Eaters. "Did you kill anyone?" "No, just scared them." "You call this scared? You destroyed half the manor." "They'll live. That's more than they deserved." Saitama walked toward the exit. "I'm going back to Hogwarts. You can arrest whoever's still breathing." "Saitama, wait! We need your statement!" "Statement's simple. They hurt kids. I stopped them. End of story." He left, walking back through the shattered gates into the night. Behind him, more Aurors arrived, their stunned exclamations echoing across the grounds as they discovered the full extent of the damage. Kingsley stood alone in the ruined entrance hall, shaking his head slowly. "Dumbledore, you've brought something very dangerous into this war." But as he began securing the prisoners, a small smile crossed his face. For the first time since Voldemort's return, Death Eaters had learned fear. At Riddle Manor, Lord Voldemort listened to Jugson's breathless report, his red eyes narrowing with each word. When the terrified Death Eater finished, silence filled the room. "Interesting," Voldemort said finally. "Bellatrix sought to toy with him. Instead, she gave him targets, motivation, purpose." He rose from his throne.
I warned her, everyone has weaknesses. The Muggle's is not his body, it is his heart. He cares for those students. My lord, Jugson ventured nervously, should we strike at Hogwarts directly? Eliminate the... No. Voldemort's voice was cold and absolute. We do not engage the Muggle directly. We do not attack his students again. We do not give him more reasons to interfere. He turned away, already recalculating his strategy. The Muggle is powerful but limited. He cannot be everywhere. He cannot stop prophecy. He cannot prevent what is already in motion. Then what do? We ignore him, continue with the plan. The Ministry will fall through politics, not punches. Hogwarts will fall through umbrage, not battle. And when I finally face Dumbledore, Voldemort smiled coldly, the Muggle will discover that some wars cannot be won with strength alone.
The Department of Mysteries was a place of secrets, buried deep beneath the Ministry of Magic, where reality bent and magic probed the universe's darkest questions. Tonight, it became a battlefield. Harry led the charge through the time chamber, his friends flanking him, Ron, Hermione, Neville, Luna, and Ginny. They'd received Snape's cryptic warning about Sirius being tortured here, and despite every instinct screaming trap, Harry couldn't abandon his godfather. Death Eaters materialized from the shadows, 12 of them, led by Lucius Malfoy, who'd escaped Azkaban through Ministry corruption. His face still bore bruises from his encounter with Saitama, but his wand hand was steady. "Potter," Lucius drawled. "How predictable. The Dark Lord said you'd come." "Where's Sirius?" Harry demanded, wand raised. "There is no Sirius, only you and the prophecy you're about to retrieve for us." The trap snapped shut. Death Eaters surrounded them, cutting off escape. Harry's scar burned with Voldemort's distant satisfaction. They'd been played perfectly. "Now," Lucius continued, gesturing toward the Hall of Prophecy, "you'll fetch the prophecy concerning you and the Dark Lord. Row 97. Attempt any heroics, and your friends die screaming." Harry's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and Saitama was back at Hogwarts, unaware of the danger. The DA training felt woefully inadequate against actual Death Eaters. Then Luna spoke, her dreamy voice cutting through the tension. "I think someone's coming." "Silence!" Lucius snapped. But she was right. Footsteps echoed through the department's stone corridors, measured, unhurried, accompanied by the faint swish of a cape. Saitama emerged from the time chamber's entrance, looking around with his usual mild confusion. "This place is weird. All the rooms keep changing." He noticed the standoff. "Oh, you guys need help?" Harry's heart surged with hope. "Saitama, it's a trap! There are 12! "Ah, the Muggle," Lucius sneered, was elaborate despite his nervousness. "I wondered when you'd appear. Did you follow Harry? How touching." Dumbledore mentioned Harry left the castle in a hurry, looked worried. Saitama's gaze swept across the Death Eaters, lingering on Lucius. "You, manor guy, didn't you learn?" "I learned you're physically invincible. I also learned you care deeply for these children. Dolohov?" Antonin Dolohov, his face still healing from chandelier impact, raised his wand toward Hermione. "One step, Muggle, and I kill the mudblood." Saitama stopped. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. A predator recognizing the hunt had become complicated. "See," Lucius smiled thinly, "you cannot protect them all simultaneously. We won't fight you directly. We'll simply kill them while you watch, helpless for all your strength."
"That's your plan? Threaten kids?" Saitama asked. "It's an effective plan. It's a stupid plan." Saitama looked at Harry. "Remember the breathing exercises? The focus training?" Harry's eyes widened with understanding. "Yes, good. Use them, all of you." Saitama's voice was perfectly calm, "because things are about to get chaotic. Kill the—" Saitama moved. The Death Eaters had planned for his speed, his strength, his durability. They'd positioned themselves to maximize hostage coverage, but they'd made one crucial miscalculation. They'd assumed he'd come at them directly. Instead, Saitama jumped. Not at the Death Eaters, straight up. He hit the department's stone ceiling with enough force to crack it. Rock and ancient mortar rained like artillery. The entire chamber shook. Death Eaters scattered, their careful formation breaking instantly. Saitama dropped, landing between Harry's group and their captors. "Run! Get to the prophecy room!" "We can fight!" Harry protested. "Not against 12. Move!" The DA students ran. Death Eaters cast after them. Killing curses, stunning spells, dark magic that lit up the department's gloom. Saitama positioned himself as a living shield, his body intercepting every spell meant for the fleeing students. Avada Kedavra! The green light washed over Saitama harmlessly. He grabbed a fallen chunk of ceiling and hurled it at the caster, Rookwood, who barely appariated away before being crushed. Crucio!
Pain exploded through Saitama's nerves. He gritted his teeth, fighting through it, and launched himself at the caster. Dolahov's wand snapped like kindling. The Death Eater screamed, clutching his broken hand. But there were too many. For every Death Eater Saitama disabled, 2 more cast at the fleeing students. A stunning spell grazed Ron, sending him sprawling. A cutting curse missed Hermione by inches. "The prophecy room!" Harry yelled. "Everyone inside!" They tumbled through the doorway into the vast hall of prophecy, thousands of glowing orbs stretching into darkness, each containing a recorded prediction. Saitama backed through after them, holding the entrance. Lucius and the remaining Death Eaters regrouped outside, 8 of them now, the rest incapacitated or fled. "You've made this difficult," Lucius called, "but the outcome remains unchanged. Potter must retrieve the prophecy, or we start killing his friends one by one. And you, Muggle, cannot be everywhere at once." Saitama looked at the narrow doorway he was blocking, then at Harry and the others behind him. The Death Eaters were right. He couldn't leave this position without exposing the students. The moment he attacked, they'd curse everyone in sight. Stalemate. "Harry," Hermione whispered urgently, "the prophecy, maybe if we give it to them." "Voldemort wants it for a reason," Harry said through gritted teeth, "if we hand it over." "If we don't, they'll kill us anyway," Neville pointed out shakily. Saitama stood in the doorway, surrounded by spells he couldn't feel, protecting people he barely knew, in a war he didn't understand. This was nothing like fighting monsters. Monsters were simple. You hit them until they stopped moving. But this? This required something he'd never been good at. Strategy. "Harry," Saitama said quietly, "get the prophecy." "What?" "Get it, hold it, make them think you're considering handing it over." His eyes never left the Death Eaters. "But don't actually give it to them." "What's your plan?" "Buying time." Saitama lowered his voice further. "How long until help arrives?" "The Order knows we're here. Snape would have told them. Maybe 10 minutes?" "Good, we wait." But Lucius's patience was already thin. "Enough delays. Jugson, kill the Weasley boy." A jet of green light shot toward Ron. Saitama moved to intercept, and Lucius laughed. "Now, while he's distracted." 4 Death Eaters apparated directly into the Hall of Prophecy, bypassing Saitama entirely. They materialized among the students, wands raised, faces twisted with malice. The trap within the trap sprung shut.
Saitama spun, but he was too far away. The Death Eaters were already casting. Time seemed to slow as Hermione screamed, as Ron dove to shield Ginny, as Harry raised his wand desperately. Then the door behind Lucius exploded. Members of the Order of the Phoenix poured through. Sirius Black, Reapin Lupin, Mad-Eye Moody, Tonks, and Kingsley Shacklebolt. Spells flew in a spectacular light show. The Death Eaters who'd stayed outside were suddenly fighting for their lives. And in the Hall of Prophecy, Saitama was done being careful. He crossed the distance to the apparated Death Eaters in a heartbeat. His fist caught the first one mid-curse, sending the Death Eater rocketing backward through hundreds of prophecy orbs. Glass shattered in a cascading wave. Ghostly predictions whispered and died. The second Death Eater tried to disapparate. Saitama grabbed his robes, pulled him back, and headbutted him gently. The Death Eater crumpled, mask cracking. The third managed to cast a blasting curse. It exploded against Saitama's chest. He walked through the smoke and tapped the Death Eater's forehead. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. The fourth Death Eater, showing rare intelligence, dropped his wand and raised his hands. "I surrender." "Smart," Saitama said. Outside, the battle raged. Lucius dueled Sirius with aristocratic precision. Dolohov traded vicious curses with Moody. The department shook with magical violence. Then reality split open with a thundercrack. Lord Voldemort arrived.
The Dark Lord stood in the center of the time chamber, his red eyes blazing with cold fury. The duel froze. Every wizard present, Order member and Death Eater alike, felt the oppressive weight of his presence. Harry's scar exploded with pain. Voldemort surveyed the scene, his Death Eaters defeated or fleeing, the Order standing defiant, and at the center of it all, a bald man in a ridiculous yellow costume who'd single-handedly dismantled his carefully laid trap. "You," Voldemort hissed, his lipless mouth curling in disgust. "The Muggle." "You're the evil wizard everyone keeps talking about," Saitama observed. "You look pretty normal. I was expecting someone bigger." Several Order members inhaled sharply at the casual disrespect. No one spoke to the Dark Lord that way and lived. Voldemort's wand rose. "I am Lord Voldemort. I have transcended death itself, and you are an anomaly, an aberration in my design." "I get that a lot." "Your presence has complicated matters, prevented operations, protected those who should have fallen." Voldemort's voice was soft, deadly. "But you are fundamentally limited. You cannot cast magic, cannot access the deeper powers. You are merely durable." "That's true. Magic's weird. Still figuring it out." "Then allow me to educate you." Voldemort's wand slashed through complex patterns. "Fiend fire!" Cursed flames erupted from his wand, massive, writhing serpents of fire that burned reality itself. They roared toward Saitama with apocalyptic heat. The Order members dove for cover. Even the Death Eaters retreated from their own master's spell. The fire engulfed Saitama completely. Harry watched in horror as the flames consumed the man who'd protected them. The heat was so intense that prophecy orbs melted in their cases. Stone walls turned cherry red. Then Saitama walked out of the inferno. His costume was singed, his cape had burned away, but he was completely unharmed. He patted out a small flame on his glove. That was warm. For the first time in decades, Lord Voldemort looked uncertain. "My turn," Saitama said, and punched the air between them. The shockwave wasn't aimed at Voldemort. Saitama had learned that lesson. Instead, it hit the floor, cratering the ancient stone and sending the Dark Lord stumbling backward. Before Voldemort could recover, Saitama closed the distance. What followed wasn't a duel. It was a lesson in the difference between magical power and physical dominance. Voldemort apparated. Saitama followed by jumping, tracking the magic's destination, and landing beside the Dark Lord before he could reorient. A casual swipe sent Voldemort throlling through 3 rooms. The Dark Lord cast a killing curse from prone position. Saitama deflected it with his palm, the green light splashing harmlessly off his skin. He grabbed Voldemort by his black robes and threw him upward through the ceiling, through the Ministry's multiple levels, out through the atrium's floor. They emerged in the Ministry atrium, the grand space that Saitama had accidentally destroyed on his first day. Night watchmen scattered as Voldemort crashed down through golden fountain remnants. Saitama dropped beside him, landing with enough force to crack the marble floor in a spiderweb pattern. Voldemort rose, his composure finally shattered. Blood, red, startlingly human, dripped from his mouth. "Impossible! I am immortal! I cannot be!" "You can bleed. That means you can lose. You just haven't fought anyone who could make you." The Dark Lord's eyes blazed with desperate fury. He cast everything in his arsenal: the killing curse, fiend fire, blasting curses, dark magic that hadn't been used in centuries. Saitama walked through it all, his expression never changing from mild annoyance. "Is this all?" Saitama asked. "Is this what everyone's so afraid of?" Voldemort stumbled backward, genuine fear finally crossing his inhuman features. He was Lord Voldemort. He'd conquered death, split his soul, brought the wizarding world to its knees twice. And none of it mattered against someone who simply couldn't be hurt by magic. "This isn't over," Voldemort hissed. "I have Horcruxes. I cannot die. You cannot stop." "I'm not trying to stop you permanently. I don't know how." Saitama advanced steadily. "But I can make you understand something really simple. You're not invincible. You're just a bully with a stick who's scared of getting hit back." He flicked Voldemort's forehead.
The Dark Lord flew backward through the Ministry's front doors, through the magical barrier, across the street, and embedded himself in the opposite building. When the dust settled, Lord Voldemort hung in a crater of broken stone and shattered brick, unconscious for the first time in decades. Saitama stood in the atrium entrance, silhouetted against the night. Behind him, the Order and DA students emerged from the Department of Mysteries. They stared at the scene, the destroyed atrium, the distant crater, the impossible victory. "Is he dead?" Harry asked quietly. "No, just sleeping." Saitama turned back. "You said he can't die permanently, right? Something about soul pieces?" "Horcruxes," Hermione breathed. "Dark objects containing fragments of his soul. As long as they exist, he can't truly die." "Then someone needs to find those and destroy them. I can beat him up, but I can't solve magic problems." Saitama looked at Harry specifically. "That part's on you." Harry nodded slowly, understanding the weight being placed on his shoulders. But it felt different now, less hopeless. If Voldemort could be beaten, even temporarily, then maybe... Sirius put a hand on Harry's shoulder. "You saved us all. Coming here was reckless, but..." "Saitama saved us," Harry corrected. "We just survived." "You fought, stayed calm under pressure, used your training. That's what matters." He looked around at the gathered students and Order members. "You've all got courage, more than most heroes I knew back home. You just needed to remember you had it." Kingsley Shacklebolt surveyed the destruction, then looked at Saitama with something like awe. "You just defeated the darkest wizard in a century, single-handedly." "He'll come back, though," Saitama said. "That's the problem with enemies who can't die. They keep trying." He scratched his bald head. "Guess I'll need to keep training your students, make sure they can handle things when I'm not around." "When you're not around?" Dumbledore asked, having arrived amid the chaos. "You're leaving?" "Eventually. This isn't my world. But until someone figures out how to send me home," Saitama shrugged, "might as well make myself useful." The old headmaster smiled, a genuine warmth in his tired eyes. "Then Hogwarts is fortunate to have you."
Across the city, in the shattered building, Voldemort's red eyes snapped open. Pain racked his body, real physical pain he hadn't felt in years. His Horcruxes would regenerate him fully given time, but the memory of that simple flick, the casual dismissal of his power, the utter helplessness. He disapparitated, retreating to lick his wounds and reconsider everything. The Muggle couldn't be beaten directly. Fine. Wars were won through strategy, not just strength. Voldemort would find another way: prophecy, politics, manipulation. The Horcruxes made him patient. He could wait, plan, adapt. But deep in his fractured soul, in the pieces he'd torn away and hidden, a new sensation festered: doubt. At Hogwarts, news spread like wildfire. The Muggle in the yellow jumpsuit had fought you-know-who and won. The Daily Prophet tried to suppress it, but too many witnesses had seen. The story couldn't be contained. Students looked at Saitama differently now, not with fear or curiosity, but with something approaching reverence. He'd faced the wizarding world's ultimate nightmare and treated it like a minor inconvenience. In the room of requirement, the DA gathered for an emergency meeting. Harry stood before them, his scar still aching, but his voice steady. Voldemort's not gone. He'll return. But tonight we proved something important. He can be fought. He can be hurt. And when he comes back, we'll be ready. Because we've got Saitama? Someone asked hopefully. Because we've got each other, Harry corrected. Saitama helped us remember we're not helpless, but this is our fight, our world, our responsibility. Saitama, leaning against the back wall, nodded approvingly. The kid was learning. Outside, winter snow began to fall over Hogwarts, blanketing the castle in white. The war was far from over. Horcruxes still existed. Death Eaters still plotted. Voldemort would return, perhaps wiser and more dangerous. But the balance had shifted. Fear had lost its absolute grip. And in a castle full of young witches and wizards, learning that courage mattered more than power, hope was taking root.
The months that followed were transformative. Saitama continued training Dumbledore's army, teaching them the mental fortitude and tactical awareness that magic alone couldn't provide. Students who'd once trembled at shadows now faced their fears with steady wands and steadier hearts. The DA expanded. Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, even a few brave Slytherins joined, united by the understanding that the coming war would spare no one. Voldemort rebuilt his forces in the shadows, but his return was cautious, calculated. The Dark Lord had learned a painful lesson. Raw power alone couldn't win this war. He shifted strategy towards subtlety, possession, manipulation, political maneuvering through the ministry. He avoided direct confrontation, knowing that the indestructible Muggle would appear wherever violence erupted. Dumbledore's research into dimensional magic progressed slowly. The rift that brought Saitama had been unprecedented, its replication proving extraordinarily complex. But Saitama didn't seem particularly rushed to leave. For the first time in years, he'd found something approaching purpose, protecting people who actually needed protecting, facing challenges that couldn't be solved with a single punch. Harry's hunt for Horcruxes began in earnest, with Saitama serving as both guardian and reminder that even impossible enemies had weaknesses. The prophecy about the Chosen One felt less like a burden and more like a roadmap, difficult, yes, but navigable. The wizarding world slowly accepted the strange Muggle who'd changed everything. Some called him a weapon, others a miracle. A few insisted he was an elaborate magical construct, but to the students of Hogwarts, to Dumbledore's army, to those who'd seen him stand between them and death without hesitation, he was simply what he'd always claimed to be, a hero. Not the hero their world had asked for, but perhaps the one it needed, someone who understood that true strength wasn't about being invincible, it was about standing up anyway, protecting others despite the cost, and teaching the next generation to do the same.
As winter gave way to spring and Hogwarts prepared for the battles ahead, Saitama stood at the astronomy tower, looking out over grounds that had become unexpectedly familiar. Somewhere in this vast magical universe, dark forces gathered. Somewhere a path home awaited discovery. And somewhere between fighting monsters and fighting dark lords, between his old world's emptiness and this new world's chaos, Saitama had found something he'd thought permanently lost. A reason to keep going. Not because the fight was exciting, it rarely was, but because people like Harry, Hermione, Ron, and countless others deserved someone in their corner. Someone who wouldn't fall, wouldn't break, wouldn't abandon them when the darkness closed in. The Second Wizarding War had entered a new phase. The pieces were moving. The Horcruxes awaited destruction. Voldemort plotted his return. And standing between the light and the dark, one impossibly strong hero remained, teaching, protecting, and proving that sometimes the greatest magic was simply refusing to give up. The story of the Muggle who faced the Dark Lord wasn't over. It had only just begun. May the Force be with you. More stories await.